Over the last 20 years, I coached hundreds of people in person and thousands of people went through my trading courses. And these are the 5 patterns that are holding you back from reaching 1500 and beyond. And here's the first tip. Stop playing one-move chess. Let me show you an interesting example. And in general, on lower rating levels, let's say when you're below 600, the way you start playing chess is that you try checkmating your opponent's king or you aim to attack his pieces, especially the queen. There's something very tempting for beginners in attacking their opponent's queen. They literally are willing to give up a lot just to threaten their opponent's queen. And so we start playing like that, and our opponents often indeed blunder something, such as in this case, Black is playing queen to h4. But then, what happens when you start climbing up that rating ladder? Very few people will literally miss a checkmate like this. All right. Now, still, as you're climbing up, a much greater percentage of players will play g3 and will still blunder, but a slightly more intricate threat of queen takes c4, and it's a double attack, and white is going down, white is losing the game. However, do you know what happens when black tries this against players rated 1400? They stop playing passive defensive chess, and they don't blunder. Quite the opposite. They make black pay the price for this unsound attack, and they choose one of the 2 moves. You can try to think about this yourself, if you will. It's either queen to f3, which combines defending the square, but also with the counterattack of black's own pawn on f7, or the second way is pawn to d4, which is the best move in the position, where not only you block the bishop from attacking you, but also you build up your center and you gain a tempo yourself. And yes, black can capture this pawn, but now white covers, this bishop is still hanging, and by the way, it's also useful to know how to refute this attack if someone tries it against you. Then you play knight to d2, hitting the queen. The queen has not that many squares to go to, by the way, because your other knight is also very active, your queen is also very active. You see that we already took pretty much, almost all the squares away from this queen, but queen f5 is still available. Now bishop to c4, hitting this pawn on f7. And that, by the way, brings us to another very interesting question. Because, okay, if you don't want to play one-move chess, but then what? And how about bishop c4? Is that a one-move threat? There's a big difference here. You see that white is attacking while bringing more pieces into the game. So the second super important tip is don't be a lone warrior. In movies, you see that single heroic character defeating entire enemy's army. But that doesn't happen like that in real life, of course. In real life, you got to use your entire army. That's the difference. So here, white is not just running around with the same pieces. He keeps bringing new pieces into the game, and that builds up a real unstoppable, powerful attack. And it's not hope chess, because whether black sees this threat or not, there's nothing he can do to stop that. For instance, knight h6. You could capture this knight, but g4 is even stronger. Again, the queen is running out of squares to go to. Queen f6 is the only square. Now g5 comes with a double attack. Now black is losing the knight, and then steal that pawn on f7, and black is completely crushed. Let's have a quick masterclass from the GOAT, so that we'll see the difference clearly. All right, in this case, Magnus is playing white, and it is white to move. Now, how would you play here as white? A lot of players would see that this knight is hanging, and they would start doing something about that. Magnus plays queen b5, which looks quite like a one-mover. And it is a one-mover indeed. It hits the rook and the pawn. Black doesn't blunder. Black player is a grandmaster. He played rook to c8, and the rook now is guarding this pawn as well. And now there's a big difference. A lot of beginner players, they would just start running around with the queen somewhere trying to make threats. Well, Carlsen knows that, you should not be a lone warrior. You got to bring your entire army into play. And instead of all that, or instead of moving this knight somewhere, he brings his least active piece. He goes rook to e1, which creates a threat of rook to e8 because our queen controls that square as well. And now black needs to block that threat. Black goes bishop e6. All right, cool. Now white expands further with queen to b7, making another threat. But notice that it actually becomes more and more difficult for black to keep his position, even if he sees the threat. I remember there was this fun thing that Soviet grandmasters used to say about Fischer. It's like, you can see his plans, but you just cannot stop them. That's how real attacks are built, not by hope chess and one-movers, but by breeding up your entire army and targeting your opponent's weaknesses. And here in the game, Black decided that it's hard to protect his pawn anyway. He played c4, batted on his passed pawn, but Carlsen sacrificed the queen on c8, and Black resigned, because it is a check, and if Black captures, that leads to a back rank checkmate with the rook to e8 mate. But here's the good thing. It wasn't just a random blunder, because white probably would have won the game anyways. Because you see, this pawn is hanging, right? There is some back rank problems because of our pawn on h6. The rook is very active, our knight is active, and white has a ton of attacking opportunities, and it's very hard for black to do anything against that. For instance, if black tries to just solidify this rook by queen to d8, do you see what white can do here? By the way, let it be our puzzle of the day. Please let me know the solution in the comments down below. Now, when you know what to do, there is a very important pitfall to stay away from. Think about this position. White has just played knight to b5. How would you play here as black? Now, it's very common for players to notice that this knight is annoying and to play something like pawn to a6 trying to kick it back, or to notice that you can develop your knight while attacking this queen on e4. But do you see what's wrong with both of these moves? It's actually the fact that both of them allow white to jump with this knight forward to d6, delivering this smothered checkmate on the spot. Which brings us to the next rule. Calculate your opponent's most aggressive reply. Now, let's take this back for a second, because some other players would notice that this knight is annoying and would decide, okay, let me just trade it, and they would go ahead and take it on b5. And here's what I want you to do. Calculate your opponent's most aggressive reply. And I don't need you to think for 10, 20 moves ahead and think like a grandmaster and calculate all these lines. No, that's unnecessary. But foreseeing your opponent's immediate reply to your move is a must. For example, in this case, if you capture this knight on b5, what's going to happen? White will recapture with his bishop, delivering a check to your king, and then what? You can notice that in this case, if white captures, there's actually no convenient way for you to cover up your king, besides just giving up your queen and losing the game. But it's much better to figure it out before you capture that knight on b5, not after, right? Similarly, if you are about to play the move pawn to a6, now there's this also pretty tactical thing. Think about this. I don't care whether the knight goes here or here or here, and you should not spend a second thinking about any of those moves. You only care about aggressive replies of white. So the only direction is the forward direction. Can this knight come forward at you and deliver some threats? These are the moves that you gotta consider before playing that move pawn to a6. This will eliminate at least 50% of your blunders and will make you a lot stronger player right away. But there is a nice idea. On the flip side of blunders lies massive improvement, because people often think that in order to improve in chess, you gotta study a lot, and that's gonna be extremely hard. But what I noticed is that very often, when people simply reduce the quantity of blunders in their games, that's plus 300 rating points right away, all right? By the way, if you want to train that particular skills deeper, I've got a free masterclass, which I'll link down below, which you can check it out after watching this video. And in this position, it is black to play. How would you play here as black? In the game, black played pawn to h5. What's the reason? I'm not entirely sure. On beginner level, somehow players really love pushing pawns on the side of the board, which I can't fully explain, but somehow it is the case. Maybe black was hoping to somehow play bishop g4 down the line. I don't know. Either way, it's a big blunder. And not just one, it's two blunders in one. It blunders rook to e1, which is winning the queen. Or it blunders pawn takes d7, which is the move that white played in the game. It checks the king, and then on the next move, it wins the rook on a8. And you can see, again, that while playing pawn to h5, you don't need to think about all the moves that white can possibly play, because there are so many of them. But you gotta ask yourself, what is the most aggressive move that my opponent can play? And if black were to ask themselves that question, they would definitely notice pawn takes d7. Again, you look at forward direction, right? Can my opponent come at me and capture something, check me, right? Then you'd easily notice this move, and then queen takes a8, and white is winning the game. Final example for this one before we move on. White has moved the pawn to h5, trying to attack you on the king side. Can you capture this pawn with a knight? Should you play this move or not? What do you think? Before playing that move, check most aggressive reply of white. What are the checks, captures that white can play here? There are no checks. As for captures, there's bishop takes g7 or rook takes h5. These are the moves that you gotta consider before playing this move. And rook takes h5 indeed opens up the black king, and now I can continue with one more aggressive move, which pins the knight and also, the bishop, and then on the next turn, after whatever, it's a checkmate. Now, that brings us to another very interesting distinction between beginners versus advanced players, all right? So beginners, they oftentimes don't think about their opponent's ideas at all, and they just blunder. Then, players learn to respect their opponent's threats, to pay attention, and sometimes that brings them into the opposite direction a little bit too much. They start overreacting to threats, such as in this case. It was white to move here, and white played pawn to a3. Not entirely sure why. I guess to stop black from playing b4 and attacking this knight on c3. And again, it's really great that white is thinking about his opponent's intentions. However, strong players don't automatically react. They don't overreact to threats, because if it's not such a big deal, because the knight can easily run away, then why would you waste time doing that? Similarly, you can of course play h3 and kick this knight away, and that is a move to consider. But again, at the same time, you don't necessarily have to play this move if there are no threats at the moment. So what would a strong player do? He would notice that, okay, there is potentially this move or this move hitting my knight, but the knight can easily run away. There is this knight on g4, which is on my side of the board. I gotta be careful, but nevertheless, it does not mean that you have to overreact right away and become super defensive. So strong players prioritize their own plans, and they ask, okay, what do I want to do here? All right. Well, actually, there is black's king here, centralized in the middle of the board. Maybe I want to trade here, and then I can deliver this check, right? Quite annoying for black. They'll have to either move the king, and the king will stay centralized and exposed, or if they block by the bishop, do you see what white can play here? There's queen takes g4, making use of the pin. Black cannot recapture because the bishop is pinned down to the king. And we solved the problem of this knight on g4 in the most brutal way possible. We just eliminated it. And similarly, we also solved the problem of b4, right? If they try attacking your knight this way, do you see what white can do here? Again, a lot of beginners would just move the knight away, being overreactive. But you can actually go ahead and just capture this pawn. And you solve both problems without playing any defensive moves at all. Let me show you another quick game between two players rated approximately 800, so that you can see the point and you can see exactly how you can level up very easily and leave your competitors behind. All right, here was black to play. Black played bishop g4. Now white noticed that black wants to take here. Was that a problem? Not really. You could just recapture, but white preferred to play bishop e2. All right, queen to g6. Is there a threat there? No, but white still played pawn to g3. Perhaps white thought that maybe in the future this queen can begin attacking this pawn on g2, but again, right now that was not a problem, right? Don't fix what's not broken. There's no need to overreact. Bishop h3. All right, is there a problem here? Again, it's really great to notice your opponent's moves, to ask what he plans to do next, but it does not mean that we need to overreact. Bishop g2, is that a big problem? Well, if he attacks your rook, you can move it away. No, not a problem. White played knight to h4 to control the square to attack the queen. Queen to e4. All right, is that a threat? Well, this time it is, right? It does hit the rook, but white correctly played bishop to f3, hitting the queen, and it turns out that it's actually fires back after bishop takes b7. Not only black's attack failed, but also now this rook in the corner is hanging. By the way, you can see that black is making one of those super common mistakes we talked about before. Black is playing those one-move chess with a lonely warrior, right? That queen running around trying to make threats, and it doesn't really work. Anyways, black played pawn to c6. Now it goes rook to g1. Perhaps white was worried that maybe black will play bishop g2 at some point. Not really sure. Anyway, right now there is a knight standing there. And even if there was no knight, it's not such a big problem. Again, you can move the rook away. So rook to g1, perhaps a little bit too overcautious. You could have captured the rook, could have played pawn to d4 with a double attack. Rook to g1, overreacting to threats which don't even exist. Pawn to g5. Is this a threat? Yes, now the knight is attacked. We gotta retreat it. It also hits the queen. Queen to f6. Now it captured on a8. And after bishop g4, actually white resigned. So black's one-movers finally worked out. And that's the problem. They do work out on lower rating levels, but at some point they stop. Because I would also say that if you're somewhere around 1000, this is probably one of the problems, because people on that level oftentimes don't blunder like simple things in one move, but they oftentimes crumble under pressure, right? When I analyze games of students rated, again, anywhere from 1000 to 1500, very often that is their biggest problem. As soon as their opponent begins putting pressure on them, this is when they start actually blundering and going down. Like in this case, what do you do here? All right, first off, you don't become cooperative. You try to fight back. You try to create problems for your opponent. So, all right, what is the threat really? It's bishop takes f3, losing a piece. That's annoying. Can I protect it? No, but even a bigger threat is that a bishop will trap your queen on d1. Okay, can I do something about that? I mean, definitely you just need to provide an escape square for the queen, right? You could move this pawn forward, providing this escape path, or you can play d4 even better, providing a lot of space for the queen. Now black captures, hitting your queen. All right, now we've got some squares to go to, and actually white is winning here. White is still having massive material advantage, and white is winning. So definitely there was no reason to resign. Which brings us to the next conclusion. When attacked, create problems for your opponent. This is the idea that's going to help you to go and bypass 1500 and go to 2000 and beyond, because this is exactly how strong players play and avoid crumbling under pressure. In this case, black has just played pawn to c5 and Fischer was the one playing white. You can try to think about that yourself and you can try to guess the move that Fischer played here. Now, beginner players would probably notice this move and would just take on c5. But we know that to take is a mistake, right? And black would probably recapture, hitting the rook. Now this rook has to retreat. If the rook retreats, black can do a whole lot of different things. Maybe push this pawn forward, or maybe play knight to e4, exposing the attack to your queen, and after that he can keep creating new threats to you, right? And it's very easy for white to start going down from here on. Now let's compare this to how strong players think about the same situation. They do notice the threat. Okay, black played pawn to c5, they want to take this pawn on d4. But they don't automatically overreact. They first evaluate whether it's really dangerous, whether it's even a threat. Because if black captures on d4, all right, I'm going to lose a pawn. It's a disadvantage, but it's not too bad, right? It's just a little pawn, and also those pawns on the d-file would be weak. So what if I just ignore it completely and play something like this, and just play my own thing? All right, black might recapture, and that would expose my queen. What do I do now? Maybe I can move my queen away, or maybe I can play something like this, which I love calling default aggressive. Like, you don't want to defend. You are default to making threats, to playing aggressive chess. And only if that doesn't work, only then you settle back for defense, all right? Now you're the one putting pressure, right? Instead of this rook attacking you, now you're the one attacking the rook. And if black trades, now you start putting pressure all around. And you see that we solve the problem of a defense without ever defending. In the actual game, Fischer played an even more aggressive move. He played bishop a5. He found a way to strike right away. This deflects the black queen, light and white capture this bishop on e7, and also attack the knight on d7. This forced black to retreat and counter the rook. Now, how would you play here as white? And again, you can clearly see how players of different strength would handle this. Like, lower rated players would probably notice this threat and would just retreat the rook all the way back. Stronger players would say, why do I need to retreat my rook so much? It's active, I want to keep it there. They would play something like rook to e1, supporting this rook and keeping your position more active. And what did Fischer do? He asked himself, how do I attack? Offense is the best defense, cliche, but still kind of true, and he played knight to g5, creating a checkmate and threat of queen takes h7. Black noticed and played knight to f6. Now what do? All right, this rook is still hanging. And again, it's the same stuff. You see that these are universal rules. We're not talking about a particular position, right? These are universal rules of thinking. Somebody would just retreat the rook back to e1, but certainly not Fischer. A bit stronger player would play rook to e1, trying to just guard this rook on this active position. And Fischer instead asked himself, how do I attack? And he found the move rook takes g7, which is a beautiful sacrifice of rook, which black cannot accept because of this double attack, and black is going to lose material. And black actually just resigned because otherwise the king has to move. But now rook takes h7 is one more sacrifice, and this actually leads to a checkmate. If you enjoy this subject, then you may like to go deeper, and in my free masterclass down below, I break down the exact thinking process that I use while playing, and I hope that it'll become much clearer to you exactly how to level up in chess. Again, the link is down below. And if you want to know Carlsen's 10 simple rules to win, head to this video next.